Thinking about process with your artwork is a really good way of progressing your art further, especially if you're feeling like you're in a bit of a lull or you're not quite sure what to do next. Hello, my name is Tracy. I'm an artist and I'm a founder of Art School by Subscription, which is my online art school devoted to all things concept, experimentation and connection. So I hope you enjoyed this video and all the other videos that I've got on those topics. Process in art, I find, is mostly about where you get your source material from and the activities that you do around that source material. So what you actually do with that source material. So the most traditional and familiar process that we have as artists is going out into the great landscape, taking photographs, bringing the photograph back to our studio and then doing a painting of the landscape. We could stop there, or we could actually add in further processes or strategies. For example, we could employ abstraction. So abstraction is actually a process and a strategy as well. We can apply abstraction to simplify the landscape photograph that we've taken, to focus on blocks of colour, for example, or we could use abstraction to enhance the expressive qualities of that landscape. But we don't have to stop there. We can employ lots of complicated and intricate and detailed, multi-layered processes in our artwork in order to create work that's perhaps a bit more unique and a bit more meaningful to ourselves. I principally get my source material from my wonderful bookshelf that I have, which is floor to ceiling, and it's jam-packed with books, which I tend to get from charity shops because I find you have a great range in there of a variety of different books. And I will go through the books until I find images that appeal to me for whatever reason, and I will either rip out the image, or I will cut out elements from it, or I will trace from it directly from the book, depending on the artwork that I'm making at the time. I've had lots of different artwork phases in my career, and one of the phases was making these cutout images. You can see a couple of them on the wall behind me. And what I would do is I would go through these books and I would take little tracings of individual images that I got from these books. Some of them would be recognizable, like a flag or a leaf. Some of them might not be recognizable, like the outline of a lake or the top level of some trees in the distant horizon. But I would collate, you can see here how many tracings that I've got. This is over many years of collecting tracings. This is my source material from when I was making cutouts and other layered tracing paper drawings. If I was to engage with this process today, I would flick through this batch of source material until I find things which stood out to me. I would take them out, ready to work with them. I would layer them onto my paper. I would trace a little element, and then I would bring in another sheet and I'd trace another little element, arranging it and composing it so it had harmony, so it had balance, so there was some narrative going on between the pieces. And after it all, I might end up with something that looked a bit like this, which is a layered tracing paper drawing. It looks quite confusing because I've taken individual little elements and layered them one on top of the other. So I'd have this overall design, and then I'd obviously take that onto my final paper surface, which for a long time for me was always gold. I went for a long gold period, and I would transfer that onto gold paper, and then I would cut it out, and you'd have something like what you can see on the wall behind me. That was my process, which started principally with visiting charity shops and finding books which aligned with my interest at the time. And I was interested in the way we valorize the landscape, in the way that we take the natural landscape and we turn it into reproduced images that represent other things like national ideology. So I was interested in castles, and I was interested in ruins, because for me these represented how the human presence within the landscape. So this process of mine started with thinking about what my central ideas were and finding some relevant source material. For you, it might not be charity shop books, it might be something else. But then after I find my source material, I engage with a process that reflects my concept. So my concept, as I've said, was on the way we reproduce the landscape and we turn it into a consumable entity. We consume the landscape by reproducing it in books and magazines. So it was important for me to work with those books and magazines and to continue that reproducing process by tracing it and layering it and retracing it and then cutting it out. The process that I engaged with directly related to the underpinning concept that was fueling my interest in art. Everyone's processes are going to be different because everyone's ideas are different. So I'd invite you to have a real think and reflect on what your central ideas are as an artist. It can help to talk to someone about this so you're not just existing in your little bubble in your head. But what really is it that you're interested in art? What is it that you're really trying to achieve? Or what is it that you really find fascinating in this world? When you realize that, or you get to some sort of conclusion, think about what is the most relevant source material that aligns with that interest. And think about how you can engage and play and experiment with that source material to relate it to your concept matter. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that and found it useful. If you did, please give me a subscribe and check out some of my other videos that I've got all about concept, experimentation and creative connections.